Hello students, welcome to our biology class. This is second video of chapter 7, evolution. In the very first video, we have already discussed how origin of life took place on earth, and we talked about different theories of origin of life. Today, we will talk about the next very important topic of the chapter, that is evidences of evolution. So today's topic is evidences of evolution, right? It is very important for exam point of view. Let's move ahead. The topic is evidences of evolution, but we will divide this topic into 5 sub-headings. First is paleontological evidences. In this topic, we will talk about how fossils may help us in identifying the course of evolution. The way how evolution has taken place can be traced out from the fossils. Second heading, we will talk about embryological evidences. Embryological evidences means we'll talk about comparative study of embryological development of different vertebrates. And this study will help us to establish their evolution. Third topic would be comparative anatomy and morphology. In this topic, we will talk about homologous organ and analogous organ and how they provide proof of evolution. Then come the fourth topic, that is physiological and biochemical evidences. Here we will talk about enzymes, hormones, proteins, how they show similarity in their composition in different animals. And at last, we will talk about evidences from protective resemblance. And here we will discuss a very interesting case, that is of industrial melanism, where a sudden change in the environmental condition helped to select the mutant variety. The frequency of the mutant variety suddenly increased just because of the change in the environmental conditions. So these are the 5 topics that we will discuss under the topic evidences of evolution. Now we will talk about very first evidence, that is paleontological evidences. So first of all, we should know the meaning of term paleontology. Paleontology is the study of fossils, that is scientific study of fossils. Here we will use scientific ways, different methodology to study the fossils, or we can say that here we study the history of life on earth as based on fossils. We excavate the earth, rocks of the earth, and find out different fossils. We trace their history. We trace what kind of life was there at that time. We find out their age. We establish their relationship with the present day animals, and then we trace their evolutionary history. Now, what are fossils? Fossils are remnants of organisms that were once living. Means they are not a part of living system of today's world. They lived thousands, millions years ago on earth. They are usually found preserved in earth's rock. If someone asks you, where do we find fossils? We find fossils preserved in different earth's rocks. Now, how this study would help us? A study of fossils reveals that a number of organisms existed on earth for some time and then disappeared. Means when we study fossils, we can find what kind of animals were living at that time, and we can establish their relationship with the present day animal. A study of fossils in different sedimentary layers. Sedimentary layers, we are talking about which layers? Different layers of the earth. Indicates the geological period in which they existed. Means if we take the carbon dating technique, if we use the carbon dating methodology to find the age of the sedimentary layer, we can find out the time when those animals actually walked on earth. Let us see an example of this. Okay, here you can see a primitive organism, and the name of this organism is Archaeopteryx. Just see the age. It lived 150 million years ago, right? It means it's very, very old, very, very primitive. And it is a fossil of this bird. Okay. We cannot say that it's a bird, or we can say it's a link between birds and a reptile. So the question is, how can we say that this is not a bird? Because in appearance it's looking like a bird, but there were some characteristics, there were some feature which make it different from the bird. Let us compare its feature, some of the feature, not all, with birds and reptiles. If we talk about reptilian character, so it has teeth in its jaws, means it has toothed jaws, but birds do not have teeth, right? Claws on fingers, so there were claws on their finger, which make them which kind of character? Reptilian. And they have non-pneumatic bones. Pneumatic bones is a characteristic of birds. It is not a characteristic of reptile. So they were having non-pneumatic bones. Non-pneumatic means their bones were not pneumatic, just like that of birds, right? So these three characters help us to identify that it belongs to reptilian class. But what about avian character? As you have seen in the picture, there were feathers on its body, so presence of feather. And presence of feather is which kind of character? It is a character which is exclusively found in birds. Forelimbs are modified into wings. You must have seen in the picture that its forelimbs were modified into wings. It means it can fly. And third is prolongation of jaws into beak. It was having beak, but beak was having teeth. So having teeth was a reptilian character, and having beak is a avian character. So scientists concluded that birds have evolved from reptile. There was a scientist, Huxley, who said that birds are glorified reptile. They are glorified reptiles. So by studying this fossil, we got to know that birds have evolved from reptiles. So we can say that evolution has taken place. Now moving ahead, we will talk about embryological evidences. Embryological evidences means now we will move towards the embryology of an organism. We will study the growth of the embryo, we will study the different stages of embryo of an animal, right? Just see the first line. Zygote of all metazoans. All multicellular organisms start their life with a single cell structure called zygote. And we know that protozoans are also single-celled organisms. It means we can conclude that all metazoans may have single-celled protozoan ancestry. It means the ancestor of all multicellular organisms might be some protozoa. So how we are saying that, how we are concluding that? Just because of zygote, because zygotes are single-celled structures and protozoans are also single-celled structures. Moving ahead. Next come the early stages of embryonic development in all metazoans. If we talk about the embryonic development of fishes, embryonic development of reptiles, birds, mammals, they show similar kind of development. They all start with a single cell, that is zygote. Then it undergo cleavage and the structure so formed would be morula. And after morula, blastula. After blastula, gastrula. So these are the sequences which is being shown by most of the animals. So what this suggests? This suggests that early stages of embryonic development. Early stages क्या हो गई? What are those early stages? Zygote, morula, blastula, gastrula, which are basically similar in all metazoans. They are similar in all metazoans. So we can say that we have some common ancestry. This proves that we have some common ancestry. Moving ahead. Okay. Who is he? He is Ernest Haeckel. Why we are studying about him? Because he is famous for giving a law known as biogenetic law or theory of recapitulation. First, we'll discuss about this theory. This theory states that individuals of a species tend to repeat the history of their successive evolutionary ancestor during their embryonic development. What does it mean? That all organism passes to some common embryonic development which shows that they might have some common ancestry. Okay, just take an example. If we take an example of this picture, you must have seen this picture in most of the books. This is an embryonic development of which animal? It is fish. Then next comes salamander, which belongs to amphibians. Then tortoise, that is reptilian. And chick, that is bird, avian. The rabbit, mammal. And again human, that is mammal. If we talk about early characters which are found in the embryo, just see this first row. Only see this first row. If we remove all this from the second and third row, you will not be able to recognize which one is a human embryo or which one is a fish, right? So you can say the early embryonic stages is strikingly similar in most of the vertebrates, right? Just see, this is the embryo of fish. It contains gill slits, and this is the embryo of human. It also having gill slit, but gill slits is of no use for us. So later on in adult stage, they are missing, right? Similarly, human do not have tail, but in embryo stage, they show tail, and fish is also showing tail. So tail, here also. It means early development is same. But as it undergo transformation, as it is moving ahead, as the time passes, then what happens? The structure become different. Now you can easily recognize which one is a human embryo or which one is the turtle embryo or which one is the chick embryo, but not in the early stages. Another characteristic that can we say that again than tail and other than tail and gill slits, that is development of eye and earbuds. And this is eye and earbuds. Development of eye and earbuds is almost same in all the vertebrates. So what we conclude from this, let us see. A comparative study of ontogeny. I told you that ontogeny means sequence of development, that is embryology, study of embryology, of varied form of animals reveals their phylogenetic. Phylogenetic means evolutionary relationship, and thus confirm evolution. It means that certain organism, if we talk about the vertebrates, early development of their embryo show similarity, means they must have some common ancestry. Just take an example we have already discussed. The embryo of all vertebrates, including human, develop a row of vestigial gill slits. Vestigial, why? Because it is no more functional in the adult and not even the embryo stage. Just behind the head, but it is functional organ only in fish. It is functional only in fish and is not found in any other adult vertebrates. If we talk about adult vertebrate like amphibians or reptiles or birds or any other mammal, it is not there in the adult, right? Later on, another scientist called Hans von Baer argued the concept of whom? Ernest Haeckel, and he said that, okay, you are right, but I have done some careful studies, and what he concluded that he said that an embryo never passed through the adult stages. It never passed through the adult stages. It only show embryological stages, right? So we can say that embryo of phylogenetically higher forms. Phylogenetical higher form, for example, if we talk about humans, so we are at a higher level, repeat the embryonic characteristic of phylogenetic lower forms. Just like the gill slit is a characteristic of fish, right? It is functional in fish, but in early embryonic stage, it is shown by us also. So, phylogenetically higher forms repeat the embryonic characteristic of phylogenetic lower forms, not their adult stages, right? Now, moving ahead, the third evidence is comparative anatomy and morphology. In this topic, we will talk about homologous and analogous organ. Okay. So, what kind of evidence is this? We have to compare the anatomical structure of different animals or different plants or morphology of different plants and animals, and we have to relate to their ancestor or find what kind of similarity they are showing to each other so that we can come to some conclusion. So first we'll talk about homology and homologous organ. This was in class 10th also. So what are homologous organ? Let us see. Homologous organs may be defined as the organs of different animals. So there must be at least two different animals. which have similar basic structure, or you can say they have similar basic design, but perform what? Different function. They do not perform the same function, and even they are superficially different. If we look at them superficially, they look totally different, but if we talk about the internal structure and design and the pattern, they show the developmentally related. They show striking similarity in their development. Just take an example of this. Here you can see the four limbs of human, four limbs of cat, four limbs of whale, and four limbs of bat. All are what? Mammals, right? You can include the four limbs of birds also, right? So the structure of their bones, anatomical structure, if you talk about the anatomical structures, so all of them have humerus, the same, right? Radius, ulna, carpus, metacarpus, and phalanges, right? So the basic internal anatomical design is similar, but do you think that they perform same function? No. Just let us compare these two, human and whale, right? Their internal design is same. Just look at their habitat. Whale is found in water. It is an aquatic animal, and human is terrestrial, right? So our hand is adapted to perform different tasks like holding, like for writing, and for grasping things, right? So our hand is adapted accordingly. But in case of whale, it is an aquatic habitat, so its four limbs are modified for swimming so that its survival is better. Just see the forelimb of cat and the forelimb of bat, right? It is a terrestrial animal and it is a aerial animal. It lives in air. So their internal design or pattern is same, but function is different. Both are the forelimbs. Here in cat, it help in running, but in case of bat, it help in flying. So these adaptation, their habitat is terrestrial, there is aerial, means they found in air, or you can say trees. So adaptation of the same organs are forelimbs, right? But we name them as hand or flipper or wings in case of birds, but their internal design is same. But because of the difference in their habitat is different. So their same organ, the same structure developed in such a way that they are best suited to their environment. So they developed the same structure, or they adapted the same structure in such a way that they can suit their environment. So adaptation may be the cause of evolution, or we can say that they adapted, so they were the part of the evolution. Just take an example in case of plant. Just see, this is bougainvillea and this is cucurbits, right? In bougainvillea, you can see here thorn, and in case here it's tendril. Both thorn and tendrils are the modification of axillary bud. They all are modification of axillary bud. But the function over here is thorn is meant for protection and tendril is meant for providing support to thin or tendril, tender stem, weak stem, to provide support to the weak stem. So tendril and thorn both have the same origin and structure, that is they are developed from axillary bud, but they perform different function depending upon their adaptation, right? So at the end, we can say that their parent species, we talk about all the vertebrates, we talk about compare the forelimbs of vertebrates. So we can suggest that we have some common parent species, right? But due to difference in the environmental condition, due to difference in the habitat, the parent species show diversion. Means they evolved differently. Same organ evolved differently. So what kind of evolution is this? It is supporting divergent evolution, that it supports common ancestry, and due to difference in the habitat, divergent evolution. So at the end, two important points from NCERT. According to the concept of evolution, the cause of variability, what is the cause of variation among the animals or plants between members of a taxon, must be due to their adaptations, that we were talking about adaptations for different environmental conditions. from same original set of characteristics, just like we compared four limbs, possessed by their common ancestor. And second point that you have to remember, homology indicate common ancestry, that we sometime back had some common ancestor, and due to difference in the habitat we migrated and showed different adaptations, and it support which kind of evolution? Divergent evolution. So homologous organs support divergent evolution. Moving ahead, sometimes there are cases, there are certain cases in living world where we find structure that are superficially similar. They look similar if in appearance, but anatomically or internally we talk about their structure, they are totally different. Superficially they are similar. They are similar in appearance. Maybe they may be performing similar function, but internally they are totally different. So such structures are known as analogous organs. So these structures may even perform the same function, and such organs are known as analogous organs. Just take an example of this. Here you can see let us see. Okay. Here you can see an insect, wing of an insect, and here you can see the wings of bird, right? Insect wings is a extension of their exoskeleton. Their exoskeleton protrude, or you can say extend to form wings, and it is made up of a complex polysaccharide chitin. You must have studied in lower classes. So it do not have any bones. But if we talk about the wings of bird, they are modified forelimbs and they are covered by feathers, but they both perform similar function of flying. Though they belong to two different groups of animal, but due to similarity in their habitat, the environment in which they live, they need to fly, right? So in that case, different structure evolved in the same way so that they are adapted to fly. So what kind of evolution is this? That their ancestors are different, but because of the similarity in the habitat, they are showing same adaptation. So it is convergent evolution. Just take an example from plant. If we take an example of plant, just take, this is underground stem, that is potato, and it is sweet potato, which is an underground root. Okay, so we can say it is a modified root meant for function of storage, and it is a modified stem meant for storing food, right? So both are meant for storing food in the form of starch, but one is a stem, other is root. So anatomically, if we talk about tissue wise, they are totally different, but function wise they are similar. So what kind of evolution do they prove, or do they connect? It is which kind of evolution? It is convergent evolution, that because of difference in their anatomy is different, okay, but because of the similarity in their function, different structure are adapted similarly to perform the same function. Just observe this picture. This is insect, this is bird. So bird are flying using their forelimbs, and insects are flying using extension of their exoskeleton, that is wings. So both are very different from each other, but performing the similar function. So we can say that bird might have some common ancestor, insect might have some common ancestor, but due to similarity in the adaptation or similarity in the habitat, two different organs adapted similarly. And what kind of evolution then it is? It is convergent. It is converging at a point. So it's supporting convergent evolution. Now, next, physiological and biochemical evidences. Proteins and genes. If we talk about proteins and genes, genetic material in different organisms, it shows similarity. So proteins and genes performing a given function among diverse organisms give clue to common ancestry. It gives clue to common ancestry, means we must have shared some common ancestor. The chemistry of protoplasm, we talk about the chemical composition of protoplasm or the genetic material or the ATP, which is a energy carrier, etc., is similar in diverse organisms. Just take an example. Large number of enzymes. If we talk about the enzyme, these are the biocatalysts. Large number of enzymes are similar in majority of animals, like amylase, which is a starch splitting enzyme. It is starch digesting enzyme. So it is common to sponges to mammal. It is found in sponges as well as in mammals. So it is very diverse, means it is found in the most of the animals from sponges to mammals. So this indicates that we should have evolved from some common ancestor. Similarly, similarity in certain hormones activity is also there. For example, thyroxine. You must have studied about this in class 11. Thyroxine hormone that is released by thyroid gland. If we take out the thyroxine hormone, if we extract the thyroxine hormone of one vertebrate and inject in some another vertebrate, it will perform the same function normally. So we can say that thyroxine hormone of one vertebrate has been found to work normally in the body of another vertebrate of any class. Okay, so this supports physiological and biochemical evidences. Can you identify these insects shown in the picture? Yes, this is leaf insect and this is stick insect, right? If you just think deeply, then they have camouflage in their background. They have adapted themselves so that they are least detected by their predators. So what is this? This is a kind of mimicry which help them to camouflage. So the next evidence is like this only. So we'll talk about evidences from protective resemblance. There is a wonderful example given in your NCERT, that is of industrial melanism, right? It was a case in the year 1850 in England. There were two forms of a peppered moth. One is Biston betulica, as you can see that it was white with black spot, and another was a mutant form of the same variety that was coal black, right? So its form was Carbonaria. So it was found that in the rural areas where the tree trunks were covered with the white colored lichen, this moth was able to survive, or you can say it was selected by the nature, so its number increased. Just see the next slide. Okay, in this case you can see that the tree trunk is covered with white colored lichen, and this is our peppered moth. It is hardly detectable to our eyes. Similarly, during the daytime when these moths rest, this white peppered moth was not identified by the predatory birds, while this black one was easy to identify and it became their food. So the number of this this black moth was lesser in comparison to this peppered moth. Now, during the same time, evolution started how? By the Industrial Revolution. Industrial Revolution, when there was revolution in the field of industry, there was a lot of smoke released from the chimneys. Then what happened? This lichen got killed due to pollution and the tree trunk were covered by the black soot. Now just see the situation. Insects both are the same, they have not changed, but the condition has changed, the environmental condition has changed. Just see, this is the black one and this was the peppered moth, right? So peppered moth is now easily detectable to the birds. So after Industrial Revolution, the number of peppered moth drastically decreased, while that of the black moth, or you can say melanic form of the peppered moth, increased drastically. Why? Because it was able to hide itself in the background, right? So this is a very good example of natural selection. Now, after that, when this happened, pollution was increasing. So there were some certain measures were taken to reduce the pollution. And then pollution when was asked to reduce, then what happened? Again, this black soot was removed and the tree trunk were covered by what? Again, the lichen. So its number again increased, right? So it helped us to suggest that during the course of time, depending on the environmental condition, a species can be better suited, so its number may increase, right? Similarly, there are two other examples which can be considered with the natural selection. One is antibiotic resistant varieties of bacteria. When we are using lot of antibiotic on bacteria, then there are some certain strain or certain bacteria which are resistant to that antibiotic, so it gets selected, and after some time the entire population become antibiotic resistant, and then despite using a lot of antibiotic, it is not killed. Similarly, if we are using pesticides or herbicide in the field to kill the pest or to kill the insects, then there are certain species which are resistant to that chemical, so it gets selected, and later on the entire population become insecticide resistant. So these are also the example of natural selection. Now here are some practice questions from the topic that we have finished so far. Question 1. State the reason for the increased population of dark colored moth with the loss of lichens during industrialization period in England. You can easily give the answer of this question. Sweet potato tuber and potato tuber are the result of convergent evolution. Justify the statement. This also we have discussed. What is the study of fossils called? Mention any 3 points how the fossils throw light on past life. This was the very first topic of today's class. What is biogenetic law? How comparative embryology does provide evidence for evolution? This we have discussed in embryological evidences. Would you consider wings of butterfly and a bat as homologous or analogous organ, and why? This question also we have discussed. So practice this question and prepare well for exam.